On today's show, here's why the price is right for Max Strus and for Caris LeVert. Let's dive in.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
I'm Chris Manning. I cover the Cavs for places like SB Nation and Cleveland Magazine and the Just Basketball Show. That man is Evan Dammarell, the founder of Down Euclid. This episode, as always, is produced by Jake Steven, and the intro music is from our friends at Astral Radio. Today's show is also brought to you by PrizePicks. Use the PrizePicks app today. Use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive a 100% into deposit up to $100. That is PrizePicks.com. The promo code is Locked On. All right, segment one today, Max Strus. Is the price right? It's a little above the MLE. The Cavs executed a sign and trade, or will officially when it goes through to get that deal done. Segment two, what Strus brings to Cleveland, why they targeted him. And segment three, Caris LeVert. The Cavs brought him back 2 years, $32 million. We'll talk about that deal and why the price for that one makes sense as well. As a tease for the Tuesday show on July 4th, we're recording back-to-back. We are going to talk about all the other Cavs free agency moves in that one, specifically George Niang and getting rid of J.D. Osman, getting rid of Lamar Stevens, and bringing in Damian Jones and bringing in Ty Jerome. But Evan, let's start with Strus. Average it year in this contract. Break it down for the listeners and the viewers. $15.7 million average over the next 4 seasons. That'll take him to ages 27 through 31. The sign and trade means that the Cavs are at a hard cap. They have $10 million left under that, and they are, with all the other signings, the more important number is that they're $3.4 million or so under the luxury tax with 2 roster spots to go. We'll see how they fill those. We'll see kind of how they duck that luxury line, because I do not think they are going to pay, and I don't think it makes sense for them to. But Evan, is this price for Strus $15.7 million on average, 4 years, $63 million overall? Is that a fair price in your mind for Max Strus?
So the Cavs, full disclosure, I think it's interesting how this evolved. Bruce Brown, I think, signing with the Pacers certainly changed a lot of things, because if, let's say, Brown went to the Lakers or he just went back to Denver to kind of help the Nuggets repeat as champions, I think Strus would have ended up with the Pacers maybe to a more comparable number. But he was, in terms of just like pure shooting or maybe just wing depth, the best unrestricted free agent on the market at the time. Mark Stein heavily linked Strus to being a Cavalier. I think Jake Fisher did as well. And then once that was kind of in the ether, I did some fact finding of my own, and it's just it's interesting. I know people were like antsy, like, okay, when's the trade going to be finalized? I'm like, well, sign and trades are complicated. You at least have the contract agreed upon. In principle, you just have to find the salary space to do it. But yeah, I think the Cavs just got probably one of the guys that are at the top of their free agency board. He's arguably the best shooter, maybe other than Niang, just in terms of just like pure attempts and volume. But this only benefits the Cavs in the long term, in my opinion. I think I'm interested to see how he's utilized next season. I think we can talk a lot about just like theory crafting on the rosters and rotations and stuff, but just on paper, I think, yeah, you're paying for a premium commodity in basketball. I think this is the price you have to pay. It's not terrible. If you look at just the payroll, he is the 5th highest paid Cavalier, I believe, heading into this upcoming season. We'll obviously have a clearer idea, maybe financially, once Evan Mobley signs his extension. Maybe Isaac Okoro signs a long-term deal as well, too. But for now, if he's your 5th, 6th highest paid player, and he provides you something that you desperately need as a team, yeah, that's the price you have to pay, especially when the market is super thin.
So the answer just is yeah. You're saying yes.
Yeah. The answer is yes. I just gave my reasoning behind it, too.
Okay, I just wanted like a firm answer, so we like had that on the record, because I also think it's yes. That was the conceit of the question. This is just what role players cost.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they cost. You look at extensions that are going on right now for other players. You look at what deals are going to be signed. The cap and what salaries are right now is going up. The price of the brick is going up and up and up. That's just where we are right now. A role player like Max Strus is going to cost this now. That's just the reality of it. He was getting linked to deals, as you said, with Indiana most notably and most publicly, above the MLE. Cleveland kind of had to pay this to get him And I think this is just what you needed. You kind of had to do something like this. I understand if there's sticker shock. I understand if you look at this and say, this is a guy who is just like a competent wing rotation player. Like, he's not a superstar. He's never going to be an all-star or anything like that. And he's making almost $16 million a year for the next 4 years. I get that there's sticker shock there. This is what good role players cost now. And if you're a team like Cleveland who has incentive to be competitive, who wants to be good, you got to pay this price to get the players you want.
Also, this contract becomes a bit of a moot point once the new TV deal is established and everything too, and maybe the salary cap escalates quite a bit. We don't know what's going to happen over the coming years, but as you said, this is the price you have to pay for a role player, especially a role player that is commanding more than the MLE and is the most attractive option after Bruce Brown went to the Pacers pretty quickly, the most attractive option available on the market. And if the Cavs want to make a legitimate push to build around what they've established, they kind of have to pay the price. And I think that's the tough part with these rebuilds, is maybe there's players like you either grow attached to, or you think like, yeah, they have like a niche or a role within this team. You sometimes have to sacrifice that in order to make like a tangible upgrade. And in my eyes, Max Strus can be your starting small forward going forward if you're Cleveland. And like, he benefits really well and flows really well, at least in my eyes, within the starting five of Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, and Allen right now. And you just have to pay that price. And in the grand scheme of things, yeah, maybe it's a lot of sticker shock just because of the amount of money in dollars he's being paid. But when you look at it, you're giving up Cedi Osman, who maybe wasn't part of your long-term future, and then Lamar Stevens, who was making not much money, like, and a guy who wasn't like consistently in your rotation. Neither was Osman. Like, that's not a bad price you have to pay for Cleveland, just in terms of like the transactional value.
Yeah, and look, I think if you consider the need, you consider where the market's at, like, that dictates this. You could say in a vacuum, I want to pay Max Strus $10 million and so, and that's going to be our cap. That's just not the reality of what this looks like. This is a market where there's negotiation, where there's bidding, where there is activity. And frankly, Evan, compared to some other deals out there, if I'm Cleveland and yes, you do hard cap yourself for the year and whatnot, whatever, I think they're going to be under that line regardless because of luxury tax. Mm-hmm. If I'm going to say I would rather pay Max Strus this contract, or let's say Dillon Brooks for $20 million a year for the next 4 years, or some of the other deals we've seen, like the Jeremy Grant deal to me is like a very, very high number, especially because Dame's wants out of there.
That was dirty work by Damian Lillard.
Good for Jeremy Grant to secure that back. Yeah. But like, if you're telling me like I am going to pay Max Strus this number for what he is versus some of the other deals we've seen, I'm super good with that. This is just like a good player at the cost he costs. This is like, it's not sexy, it's not fun, it's not like, oh man, you got Donovan Mitchell, it's not splashy. But this is like a really good player. It's just a good NBA player that you need.
Yeah, and to your point, and to Kobe Altman's point, like, he really hammered home at his exit interview that the Cavs need to add shooting to their rotation and their depth chart. And like you said, and I think it's been pretty clear in the ether that the Cavs like weren't going superstar hunting in this free agency class or even through the trade market because they're asset limited. But like, the Cavs worked pretty well within their margins. Yeah, being hard cap sucks. I'm going to ask you to explain to the folks what being hard cap means, because it's a hard concept to kind of fit in. This is very simple. They have about $10 million. So it's hard cap means there is a absolute maximum amount of money you can spend. It's like $170 million or something like that. What for Cleveland, that it doesn't super matter, because their real number that we're looking at is they have $3.4 million left under the luxury tax line, and it would get up to like 5 or so if they were to say sayonara to Sam Merrill and clear that roster spot out. I don't know if they're going to do that or not. Whatever. We'll see how he looks in Summer League. The hard cap thing would matter more if you were like Phoenix or the Clippers or the Lakers, who are these big teams with massive wage bills and superstars on the not fun maxes, and like on the if you're paying Bradley Beal's contract or something. It's less of a deal for Cleveland because they're not going to get up to that number anyway. I think they're willing to do this because they were never going to get up to that hard cap line anyway. The real line is like $6.5 million below that hard cap line. Mm-hmm. I mean, the numbers game behind this is going to be fascinating, as you had noted at the top, heading into Monday. The Cavs are about 3.4-ish million under the luxury tax threshold, so like that's a pretty thin margin to work with. I would assume Cleveland's done, considering they only have 2 roster spots left just to sign players, and we'll see how they navigate it with the rest of the summer. But the Cavs were pretty proactive to start free agency, and getting one of the best wing players and arguably the guy that at least makes the most sense fit-wise on paper was a really smart move on their part.
All right, after this, we're going to explain why Max Strus is a really good fit with Cleveland. And spoiler alert, he takes a lot of threes, and there's a pretty clear thing that they are targeting in this. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks, where first-time users can receive up to a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. To play, pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you win. You can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It is just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes the NBA, the NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, WNBA, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy. They offer safe and fast withdrawals, currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. So if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for that instant deposit match up to $100. Thanks for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Everydayers, Evan and I will be back tomorrow. We are going to talk about Georges Niang. We're going to talk about his fit, and we're going to talk about other Cavs free agency moves. Lot of business done by Kobe Altman and co. on this first weekend of free agency in July. All right, so Evan, I'm going to give you some numbers about Max Strus that I think pretty much indicate what Cleveland wanted in him. He's going to be somewhere between. I'm a cleaning the glass just lover. He's going to be somewhere between 35 and 30% on threes at high volume each year. According to the Cleaning the Glass, he has been near the top of his position in 3-point rate. Georges Niang, also the same thing, so come back tomorrow for some very similar thing. They clearly had a thing they wanted, and they went out and got it based on these physical profiles.
I'm so excited to talk about the minivan. I'm so excited.
Oh, boy. So where's Strus going to come in and do? He's going to come in, he's going to take a bunch of threes, he's going to take moving threes, something Cleveland just didn't have a lot of last year, frankly. And he's going to give them the dimension to the offense that wasn't there. And Evan, this is the best part of this to me. A high-volume three-point shooter is something that helped Mitchell Cook in Utah. It's going to help him now. It's going to help Darius Garland now. It's going to help Evan Mobley too.
I wonder if they maybe copy some of what worked under Quinn Snyder when Donovan Mitchell was with the Jazz, because you hit the nail on the head. This is a lineup like I hammered a lot when Dean Wade wasn't so gun-shy and he kind of functioned as like that weirdly, oddly fit three-point shooting big within the lineup of like Mitchell, LeVert, Wade, maybe a Okoro, and then like one of Allen or Mobley. But like you look at Strus and you said like he is going to add quite a bit of three-point shooting on top of a team that added a lot of three-point shooting naturally just by adding Donovan Mitchell. Like I was diving into Strus's numbers once it kind of became clear like there was a lot of fire behind the smoke for him, and he was top 30 in the league last year in three-point attempts. Like that's noteworthy. We'll talk about Niang tomorrow, but Strus is going to be kind of that safety valve the Cavs needed. Like when you watch how they played against the Knicks in the playoffs this year, like if Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland or one of the two is kind of getting flustered and maybe like the other one can't get it going, like you have Strus who can benefit from the gravity and defensive attention those two command to stretch open the floor and, as you noted, give Evan Mobley more space to work with on the interior, and also Jared Allen as well, who's not a shooter, give more space to work in the interior too. And him being that safety valve to kind of just keep defenses honest is going to be refreshing, because it became crystallized, especially just, and this is no disrespect because he's still on the team and I'm a believer in him to an extent after coming back to the table about it. Like Isaac Okoro is just not going to get the respect of opposing defenses. Max Strus, if you leave him wide open, like he's going to make you pay for it. Sure, there's some athletic limitations. There's reasons why he went undrafted out at DePaul. And in Cleveland is maybe sacrificing defense for offense in this one, but they play such an antiquated style of ball with two bigs, and they focus so primarily on defense. They need to make their life easier on offense, and Max Strus is a guy who will make their life easier on offense across the board.
One of the things I would expect too is just DHOs for Strus with Evan Mobley, with Jared Allen. You could see him being the screener for Mitchell or for Garland to kind of do a pick and pop. There's just a lot of little things you can now do in the offense with a guy like this, and I think a guy like Niang to some degree as well, right? Evan, we'll talk about this kind of in the Jetty Osman thing tomorrow. But one of the things that I just kind of thought about this is this is not like you got like the name brand Jetty Osman. You got like a player who has like a complete offensive profile as a shooter.
Well, and look, he's more consistent. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, he's more consistent. He's less volatile. I think he's a better defender. That's the other part of this we shit on too. He is not, by metrics, by eye test or anything like that, going to come in and be like an elite 3 defender. If you were going to like build the perfect 3 in a lab, I don't know if he would be that exactly. So if you want to say like that's a risk and that you're getting someone coming from Miami that's a risk, I'm willing to say that I understand that. I think those are like fair concerns if you're going to nitpick at this. What I would say is that he's going to compete on defense. He's going to battle. He's shown that he's willing. He's not going to just get run over on the side. Like that's just not going to happen with him. And we're in a salary cap league. Mm-hmm. Every player you get at this price range in the free agency market at this point and how the NBA works, you're going to have limits on these guys. And I think what they've kind of chosen to do here is say, okay, we have the defensive infrastructure. Evan Mobley's an alien. He's going to help build a solid, great defense for us just by being on the floor. Jared Allen as well. Strus is competent. He's competitive. We really need his shooting. That is like a trade-off for him not being a plus defender we're going to make because the shooting is going to give us so much value.
And I know people will maybe nitpick on the fact that like we just both said Strus is more consistent than Jetty Osman because you can look at the 5-game slide he had in the NBA Finals where like he went 0 of 9 in game 1, 4 of 10 in game 2, 1 of 4, 0 of 3, 1 of 6. Like, yeah, there's highs and lows with Max Strus, but again, that Heat team was a team that was just so starving for 3-point shooting because they didn't have Tyler Herro. Like it was like Strus, Kevin Love, and then like Jimmy Butler if he was able to get one after Butler had to do everything else on offense. I think for Strus, like having the luxury of being like that 5th banana in the starting lineup if he starts, or if he comes off the bench and is utilized as just like more of the glue guy. I think your note of like Donovan Mitchell thriving with like just having that free firing 3-point shooter like is a really smart one. Like there's a lot of creative ways JB Bickerstaff can utilize Strus in lineups. Like I really want to see a lineup of like LeVert, Strus, Niang, one of Mitchell or Garland, and one of Mobley or Allen because like there's a lot of spacing in that lineup. There's a lot of versatility. You can empower Caris LeVert as like the lead guard sometimes, and Strus can just be the benefactor of it because there's going to be a lot of driving to the basket and kickouts because you're going to have just too many offensive threats on the floor. And if you kind of build that rhythm and rotations, it works out nicely for Cleveland.
Yes or no, he is your favorite right now to be the starting 3 on opening night come October.
Based on just what I know on Isaac Okoro and Max Strus right now, I would say yes, just from the spacing aspect alone. What about you?
Yeah, I think he's the favorite. I think he makes the most sense. I think ahead of Okoro, ahead of LeVert, ahead of Niang, who played a lot of 4 mostly for Philly last year. I think he is coming in to be the starting 3, I think, in all honesty. Played a lot of that with Miami. I think certainly maybe fits the physical mold of being more of a 2, and we'll see kind of how that looks. But I think he's going to play the 3, and I think there's a very good chance that he starts. All right, after this, let's talk about Caris LeVert, who got a new deal and is going to stay in Cleveland. All right, Caris LeVert. Evan, he got 2 years, $32 million. Will pay him an estimated 15.3 in year 1. What do you think of this deal for Caris LeVert?
Well, it's lower than what we thought it would have been when we kind of gave our when we put a pin in the conversation when I exited stage left for last week. We talked about maybe like 18.5 million. So it's a lot less. it's a good deal for Cleveland. I think it's a good deal just overall that they kind of got that done. I'm curious to think, like, what if they waited just because they could go over the cap for him, but whatever. Either way, like, I like the deal. I think LeVert, again, was becoming much more malleable as a player, especially when he was utilized as, like, that lead guard off the bench, and you play him in tandem with one of Garland or Mitchell. We'll talk more about some of the other signings just because, like,
sure,
it makes sense just how LeVert could be utilized as a player. He really adapted to the fact that the Cavs needed 3-point shooting, and maybe he doesn't have to do that as much heading into next season, but it's certainly helpful that he has that comfort level. But he played really well for Cleveland, especially down the stretch, and you and I had the conversation several times during the season, and when the season ended, like, yeah, the Cavs need to kind of make a priority to just sign Caris LeVert to some type of extension. I'm surprised it's this short of one, but hey, rock on, man. Like, this is a really well-designed deal for LeVert, I guess, and more so for the Cavs because it gives them a lot more financial flexibility going forward, too.
I don't think that where I would disagree, the only thing I'd really disagree in is I think 2 years for him is, like, not a terrible thing for him. Like, yeah, you would have probably liked maybe 4 years and, like, this max thing, but for where...
Yeah, like, ideally, if you're a player, you want to get top dollar as long as possible, but, like...
Yeah.
I agree with the extent that, like, it's a 2-year deal. We don't know, like, the exact terminology. Maybe it's a player option or something like that. Like, if he is...
We would have heard by... I think this is just straight 2 years. We would have heard by now if there's an option or something like that.
He can use... Like, he's still relatively young. Would be entering his 30s by the time this contract expired. Or
he turns
late 20s. He'd be 29, 30 at that point.
Well, he turns 29. He turns 29 in August. So age 29 season, age 30 season would be 31 at the start of his next contract. I like that is theoretically, if he plays well the next 2 years, that's enough time to go get one more kind of decent paycheck before like it's minimums or you're out of the league.
That's what I was getting at, is like you could maximize your earnings because you got a pretty good deal, and you could go maximize your earnings one more time to maybe just get like one more, not fat payday, but like at least enough money to like you're satisfied at the end of your career that you made good money across the board.
Also, the cap is going to go up. That is going to put some of the deals signed this summer, like make them seem lower. Like, and if he and his agent are like, okay, 2 years, maybe we could get something a little bit more. You run the risk on your risk for that. I get it. So I think for him, it makes sense. I think obviously, you know, he was never going to get the 4-year, like 100 whatever max extension from Cleveland that he could have gotten. Not a max, but like the maximum for his salary slot. That was never going to happen. I also think for Cleveland, this is not like the funnest thing to say and like project out. I think as on a human level, as considering he just signed this deal, but this is a tradable contract. This is a contract that it's useful for stacking. It's used for salary matching. In the new CBA, you have to match closer than you did in the old CBA, kind of to get not kind of. But you have to get the numbers closer than they were under the old one. So like a salary like this, where like you can use that to trade for someone else. It's useful to have just as a chip on the board, and it's not. And if you're the Cavs calling another team, you're not like asking another team to say take 3 years of Caris LeVert. You're saying it's like a year and a half of Caris LeVert, or if it's they trade him at the not this trade deadline, but in 2024, 2025, that trade deadline, they could be like, hey, this is an expiring contract. It is just like less money. It is both useful for matching in trades, but also I think not a deal that is going to like really freak teams out about how long they might be paying Caris LeVert.
No. And we talk about just like the idea of Caris LeVert. There's always going to be intrigue about him because he has the size of like a modern prototypical 3-point shooting wing. The defense maybe isn't fully there. I just don't think it is. But you can always sell yourself on the idea of it. Like, I don't think a team's going to give up an expiring and a first-round pick to Cleveland if they want to like trade Caris LeVert as the Cavs did to the Pacers. But there is value within the fact that like LeVert put together a pretty solid closing to his resume to the end of his season, and he was paid well for it. I think the Cavs, maybe the structure of the contract too is sure on the LeVert side of things, like the cap is going to go up, you could get paid more, but also like there are legitimate concerns with Caris LeVert too. Like there's health issues. Maybe he does regress back to the mean, and maybe like that sudden burst he had for the second half of the year like isn't sustainable. Like this gives the Cavs a little bit of a backdoor option where if this doesn't work as well, you can get it maybe a little bit more creative because it's an easier contract to sell to a team. Not even when it's expiring, or like leading up to the deadline for some reason too.
The other thing the last thing I think about this, number one, I think he's going to come off the bench. I think he's going to be a super sub at this role, and with the Strus signing, I think that's where this is headed for his role. I think that makes sense for him and for the team. The other small thing that matters, and this is very minutia, but it matters for the Cavs roster building, so good on them for this. Him at 15.3 versus, let's say, like the 18 million, like kind of the high number we heard for him. Let's say he would have got like 17.3 instead of 15.3. That 15.3 versus a higher number gives them a little bit more room to work on the luxury tax line. If they're at 3.4 million under the luxury tax line, which Cruz Fedor and others have reported the Cavs will not go over, and I don't think it makes sense for them to go over at this point in time. Like, you trigger repeater taxes and all that stuff. You have to be very, I think, particular about when you dive into that. I don't think this is the exact right moment to do so. It's unavoidable at a certain point, but I think this season it's maybe pushing you a little bit further to some degree. If he had made $2 more million a year, and that cut in their luxury tax line, their ability to actually fill out the rest of this roster would have been really difficult. So, like, just getting that salary figure for him and giving yourself a little bit more wiggle room, that's a win. That's good work by Gansey and Altman and, John Nichols, their cap guy, and all the people working on this.
Yeah, it was well structured. I agree with you. Like, you empower LeVert to be that super six man for you. Makes you wonder, like, what is Ricky Rubio's future this team, especially with Strus, Niang. I think Ty Jerome does have some viability to, like, be in the rotation heading into this season for Cleveland. Like, the Cavs made a priority to get shooting, and for a guy like Caris LeVert, who isn't a shooter by trade, I mean, last season notwithstanding, like, this will make his job easier on offense too, and kind of empower him a little bit to be that super six man for you, because the Cavs have a lot of role players that can add that versatility. And it's not just LeVert. Like, they're not obviously building around LeVert. It's more so the core four, quote unquote, but it does give you a lot more creativity and fluidity. And LeVert's he's fascinating as a player after last season. And I think the way this is structured is like, okay, we believe in you. Let's see if we can keep this going. And also, like, he can sign another extension after this upcoming season, if I'm correct, and like just keep like kicking this can down the road, but like just extend this deal out further so the Cavs can say, okay, yeah, no, this is sustainable. This is a dude we want to have like around long term, or they can pull the plug on it and use him as an expiring, because there's going to be a team who wants to bite on Caris LeVert.
If he's as healthy as he was last year and shoots as well as he did last year, this will feel like a very good deal. And those are not certainties, but I think if those hold, that this will feel like a solid enough deal for Caris LeVert. All right, that's going to be it for today's Locked On Cavs. Back at you tomorrow with talking about Georges Niang, who the Cavs got with part of the mid-level exception. Talk about Ty Jerome, talk about the Damian Jones trade, and we'll talk about what they are losing and sending out Cedi Osman and Lamar Stevens. Until then, I'm Chris. That's Evan. Thanks again to Jake Stevens for production.